All right, everyone, as we promised, here comes the recording. And we are sorry it took so long. This is the amazingly talented Catherine Ann, who honestly brought my book to life. I did not think anybody could do it like I heard it in my head, but she pulled it off. And I am very, very happy. As are a lot of our listeners who have already been getting a hold of those promo codes since we released. So do you have anything you want to say? Introduce yourself before we get started with the questions?
Not really. My name is Catherine Ann, and I am getting started. The Fall is actually my third audiobook. It's my first more full-length fiction. I did have a bit of a fun story with my first book. It was kind of an adventure in the Wild West of ACX. It was just it was actually a very Bible-heavy book, so it tested and I haven't had to pull up the deep tracks of scripture since I was a kid, and he had whenever he quoted it, he only used the first 3 letters of all of the Bible books. So as I was recording, I had to think on my feet, like, M-I-C, is that, what was it? Is that Micah? Is that Michael? And I had to so that was my very first project.
Abbreviated it for you. Nice,
oh yeah,
nice.
But kept me on my toes there.
Yeah, once we went live on Audible, I went to your profile and I listened to your audio samples of your other 2 books. Because I know you had told me those really challenged you.
Yeah. That first one more so than the second was a Amish book.
Mm-hmm.
And since I was a German major in college, the vocabulary wasn't as difficult, I guess. I just had to learn more of the specific pronunciation. But yeah, it was a short little, I think it was an hour and a half. So it was a nice warm up for me. Just a fun, cute, little good-hearted, simple book.
That's awesome. So the Fall was really a different approach for you then.
Yeah, I mean, all 3 are very different from each other. So I've got some range going, working up to bigger and better.
Absolutely. All right, so I guess I will get started with your first question. And if you want, we'll just rotate these.
Sure.
Okay. So when did you decide to produce audiobooks and what inspired you to do it?
Well, I had been writing myself since I was a kid. And I took a break for a while in college. I think I mentioned I was a German major. I wanted to go into teaching. And my first job out of college, since they're not hiring German teachers anymore, was at a preschool. And I just loved 3 and 4. It's just delightful. I know we've talked, I'm trying to start a family of my own with my husband right now. And story time, I just loved. That's what I missed the most. I loved story time. And especially with little kids, you can't fake it. It's a performance. It's very interactive, and working in all the skill sets like sequencing, like rhyming, a theory of mind, even simple math, like all of these things where, working it into the story as a performance, as an active thing, I just loved so much. And I really missed that. And so as I was kind of doing my own little fiddling around with writing, I would record myself on my phone and listen to it obsessively at work. And I had so much fun with that. And since I was I just thought maybe I'd, hi. I just thought I'd do it, give it a try for other writers. And I got a microphone and I just got started. I just had a lot of fun. I thought I could keep doing it. That was a bit long, but that's my kind of background.
Oh, you're fine. The longer, the better. I have to stop because as a writer, I will go into long-winded explanations.
Yeah. All right. Well, my first question for you was, when you very first started on the book, what was the very first scene or moment that you wrote down? And did it make the final cut, or did it end up deleted?
Well, the very first scene that I wrote for the Fall actually did make the cut. It was the prologue. My goal as an author is to capture your interest in the first chapter or the opening.
Mm-hmm.
And once I started writing to escape something personal I was going through in my life. So I had to go deep, and I had to go deep pretty quickly. So my need to escape plus my need to capture an interest immediately, I go right into something action-packed. That's all of my books begin that way. I have 11, and they all go straight into something action-packed to just grip your attention. So I could not imagine this book without that prologue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it definitely does. Because I think that was the first thing you sent me too. Mm-hmm. And it caught my attention. It had really, I liked the pacing, I liked the personality. Yeah.
So that was my thing. And my first person point of view is my way of escaping. Mm-hmm. So that's why most of my writing is in first person. I know that's not part of the question, but it goes hand in hand with the answer. So
yeah.
So what was your first impression of the fall when you received it?
Well, I know this might come around, I think, because you had approached me after hearing one of my samples, and so I was just getting a sample, and I think I had even seen on a review someone mention Amber, the main character, and I was also struck by that when I got that. I did really like the first person as a performer. It let me give a lot of personality to it, and I really liked, especially lately, I feel like I can't get away from stories lately of women as victims, and a lot of, all the success is done in spite of someone who wronged them, or it's as recovering from, and Amber, there's not a victim bone in her body. Like, she's very
no,
yeah,
there is
and
not.
so that was very refreshing for me. Like, her accomplishments were done for something, not in spite of something.
Right.
And I really like that. And also, just as a performer, I think your pacing and just the basic way that you were writing was very easy to settle into. It was very comfortable. So I like that a lot. And yeah, it just it felt comfortable. Like, it felt like I could get in, live
like
in that
a mentality you could get into.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, here's my second question. Authors usually put a lot of themselves into their protagonists. How is Amber like you, and how is she different?
Well, like I said, at the time that I started writing The Fall, I was going through a really difficult time with something very personal in my life. My short, non-in-depth version was that I was going through my second divorce. So I felt like at that point I had lost myself. Once upon a time, I was a very outgoing, very strong individual. You could not tell me no. If you did tell me no, I would prove you wrong. Amber is me. She is that memory of who I was, who I needed to get back to. She was my guide to heal. So the only way that we're different is I'm nowhere near in as great shape as she is. So, but her being driven, her will to survive, how she just seems like everything just falls into place naturally and quick on her feet. That was who I was and who I had to become again.
I like that.
So, how did you know that this project was a good fit for you and your talents?
I think I did speak to that a little bit in the last answer. It was, again, like the rhythm and the voice of it just felt very comfortable for me, especially coming from the Amish book, which was more of the German paragraph long sentences, and I couldn't breathe at all. But no, and I also felt like it was that she was very adult as the point of view character, and very female, and especially, I'm 31 now.
I'm 35.
And I feel like, but yeah, I feel like it was much more of a good fit for a kind of person I could be, and I could get into her head very well as someone who's competent and capable, but also very much motivated by protecting the people that she really cares about and protecting the weak ones in her life, her kids, the village. It's a very motherly, very female, but at the same time very strong and very capable instinct that I liked a lot, and I got into it very quickly.
That's a really awesome answer. I'm trying not to let my ego go like way up here right now.
Yeah. Okay, my next question for you is a little bit of a detour. About the other, besides Amber, another main feature of the book is zombies. So what about zombies specifically kind of struck you? Like, what about zombies do you find compelling or, interesting?
Well, when you get into my favorite authors, my answer is going to be pretty obvious. They are Stephen King and H.P. Lovecraft and Edgar Allan Poe, which is where my heart goes. I love the classics. Zombies are terrifying, and terrifying is great for me. I love a good horror story more than anything else. And because they're terrifying, it really, it will grip you, but it's more than that. It makes you think outside the box. It's relevant because, we take a lot for granted in our life that we have now. We have internet, we have phones. If our car breaks down, we can call a tow truck, we, run out of milk in the cabinet, we can run to the grocery store, but you don't have those options during a zombie apocalypse. So I guess mainly it's relevant because it brings out the raw humanity. And it also gives you a good adrenaline rush.
Yeah. What always struck me about zombies, because I'm a horror movie buff, I think that the mindlessness of zombies kind of brings out, by the juxtaposition with the main characters, it brings out their humanity and the kind of impractical, more compassionate human side of us, more than just being alive. We want to love or nurture or make art or something. And I think that was also a feature of, especially having her be a mother and with the love story, very much brought that out.
Yeah, that was one thing I was very happy with, was being able to throw that love story in there, but not make it I've described myself a lot as a multi-genre author, because there's no one main genre that fits any of my books. There's a little bit of everything in all of them. So, that was really one thing. I know it's completely off topic, but I love that I was able to throw a little romance in there, some inspiration. You even had some tragedy, because Amber's husband in the book had died in a car crash. So you have, lots of different aspects that fit into that. But I completely trailed off, and I apologize. But
that's what we're doing. We're chatting.
I started to read your question instead of mine.
Oh.
Okay, so what would you say was your greatest challenge when producing?
I think because I probably sent you 3 versions of that first, was the accent. Yeah. I know I'm an Ohioan. So when I think of anything below the Ohio River, to me is Kentucky in my mind. And as soon as I heard Georgia's different than Kentucky, I freaked myself out, and I ended up hearing a very specific, I think you know what I'm talking about, more Gone with the Wind kind of Georgia. And
that was my first thought when I heard it.
Was that R?
It was so Scarlett O'Hara, but that's okay.
No.
Because here, I know I keep trying off, but here's your fun fact about the book Gone with the Wind. Gone with the Wind was actually inspired by an area 5 miles from where I grew up. 2 miles. I grew up on Barnsley Garden Road in Adairsville, Georgia. 2 miles down the road from my house is a place called Woodlands at Barnsley Gardens, and it was bought by Godfrey Barnsley as a gift for his wife. Scarlett O'Hara is actually Julia Barnsley, the daughter of Godfrey Barnsley, who had to rebuild and try to reestablish multiple times. So the real life Tara is 2 miles from where I grew up.
That's
The
pretty
author of the
cool.
book was friends of the Barnsley family.
That's pretty cool. But yeah, so that's what I had in my head, and it was very difficult to get that out, and I kind of freaked out. And I had one of my coworkers.
I think I remember sending you a message saying, I can send you my phone number if you want to have a conversation so you can hear my accent.
Yeah. But yeah, so I just found a bunch of YouTube examples, and then of course everyone on YouTube was very consciously trying not to have any accent. They're like, oh no, my accent, like, it's an accent video. So I finally found some examples, and I did some more. I re-recorded 3 or 4 times, and I had my coworker listen to it. And after 2 minutes, I tried to take the headphones away. Finally, like, oh, you don't have to hear the whole thing. And she's like, no, I want to hear more. Like, I'm into it. And so that was when I finally could relax a bit and start settling in. She just finished it yesterday too, and she liked it a lot. She got the
whole book. Did she get
she got a promo code, and she's very interested in number 2 when that comes out.
Yeah, that will be happening next year.
All right.
I gave myself a tight deadline for that. You'll be getting that in March.
All right. Well, I'll be here. What was my next one? Oh, about the kind of fighting details. So you had a lot in the fall about kind of planning for that post-apocalyptic, and there are a lot of scenes that are very tactical and very strategic. So were those more things that you just kind of researched on your own, or is there anything in your experience that kind of gives you insight into that thought process?
Well, one of my very first horror movies that I ever got to watch was the original version of Night of the Living Dead.
That's a good one.
So, and that's actually what made me fall in love with horror movies in general, and then move over to books later. But her process of survival that she gives everyone, especially the weapons making and being resourceful, and I know I throw a lot of people off when they read the story about why in the world are we raiding electronics for cords? And I do explain it later. But that mindset of thinking, I come from 2 sides of the tracks. My mom's side of the family is your middle class, well-educated. They're not wealthy, but they're comfortable financially. Pretty much where we all dream to be. My bills came, I can write my checks and mail them out.
Yeah.
My dad's side of the family is the very poor, have to scrimp and save type of people.
Mm-hmm.
And I spent more time with that side of my family than I did my mom's. My parents were divorced. Most of that actually came from my dad. Where a lot of people go, oh, let me buy guns and put them in my house for home defense. Well, that's a great idea. But my dad couldn't have guns. So he was the type who would take a broom handle and break it in half if someone broke into the house. Yeah. So the resourcefulness and thinking outside the box comes from growing up in that, oh, well, my hose broke from my radiator, but I've got to get my car home because I can't afford a tow truck. So let me take the duct tape out of the trunk and take that hose. That's where it came from.
That's cool.
So most of this is just sitting back thinking, okay, I'm in this. What am I going to do?
Yeah.
And that's where it came from.
Yeah, that's the kind of mindset you'd have to be in.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
All right. So what is your favorite scene in the fall? Which one just really gripped you?
Well, I have to say, here's a bit of behind the scenes. If you had heard, I think it's chapter 26 with Charlie. I don't know if I want to give away any spoilers, but there was a moment, I think I had recorded 6 or 7 chapters in a row, and it was very late at night on a weekend. And I just remember being in my little blanket fort. It's actually right. I wonder if I could.
Oh,
my
that's
blanket
awesome.
fort.
We get to see the blanket fort.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And
You can on the
I just,
playback.
oh.
Well, you want to see my mess?
Amazing. But oh yeah,
It's
and
amazing
so
I can get anything done in that space.
hi.
No, you're not. Go away. That was my son.
Hi.
No, you're not my favorite. I don't have a favorite child. Go away.
But yeah, but I got to a certain point where she just started kind of thinking about everything, and it was a very sad moment. And as soon as I had to read a line in her voice where she started to break a little bit, not outright cry, but like it was one of the only moments where she actually like broke a little bit. And as soon as my voice started, I couldn't stop it, and I started crying, and I had to hold it back. And I was like, I can't go over the top with this. I have to like get it under control. And I just kept going. And so I think you can hear it in my voice a little bit. I'm really.
I could.
That's not fake. I'm actually crying.
26 is the last chapter of the book, if I remember properly. I've just had my head in 2 more audiobooks, so I have so many numbers right now that I have seen on my computer screen in the past 3 days. But I believe 26 was the last chapter, or next to the last at least.
I think it's
That's when I started crying, and I was
Oh.
like, look,
Yeah.
you know you got it right in the writing and the producer when you can suffer trauma at the hands of your own book.
Isn't that what you're going for, though? Yeah.
That's really great. Chapter 7, I believe, is the first one that made me cry. And I went over that one with you. I won't go into detail here, but I did share with you that one moment.
Yeah.
With one of the cousins there.
Mm-hmm.
And that one, that being brought to life was really amazing. And I can tell you from an entire family who's not even a year into going through that, we all appreciate that because it has touched so many people.
Well, I'm glad.
And I'm not going
to okay, here's my next one. So what made you first think about doing an audiobook, and did you ever consider narrating it yourself?
Well, I got into audiobooks mainly because I have a lot of adopted brothers, as I call them. They are close friends of my biological brothers who grew up with me. One of them's in the military. He's overseas, and he doesn't have time to sit back and read.
Yeah.
And he had said, well, why don't you look into producing on Audible? And I was like, oh, Josh, I'm so far away from being able to afford to do anything like that. He's like, no. Scroll down to the bottom of the Amazon homepage and you'll find what you need. And so I did that, and I was like, audiobooks. That would actually be awesome because my writing style moves fast. I don't give you a 600-page book or more because I don't put pointless filler. I keep the story going. It's made for busy people. It's written for busy people who, some literally only have time to read when the book's on the back of their toilet. Trust me, I've lived that life, and that's been the only time I've gotten to read anything. So that was what I had in mind. I wanted to keep the story going, and audiobooks are a good way of doing that. It was another way to fit into that. I'm writing literally for everyone else in their busy life to be able to escape. Narrating them, no. If I read, I read a lot faster than I can talk, and I will stutter a lot. I mean, absolutely a lot. So I never wanted to narrate mine, and because I'm so passionate about my books and so much of a control freak, I was really afraid to hand these manuscripts over to other people to read. I do not regret it, though. I do not regret doing it now because I was amazed. I've been blessed. And my readers have been blessed. Because I was worried about someone, butchering my work.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's when you put your heart and soul into it, and then you give it to a stranger. That's scary.
It really, really was. And you know, I've one day I'll release the memoir of my entire life story, and people will understand why I'm such a control freak. Um, but yeah, it was very scary to think that I was going to trust someone to put all the right emotion, and you know, is somebody gonna, you know, make my my female heroines going. They're gonna make them dramatic crybabies. No, none of mine are dramatic crybabies. They have moments, you know, but they are strong, strong women. Mm-hmm. They are that literally that woman who will look in the mirror crying and go, "You got this," and walk out the door, and you won't even tell they shed a tear.
Yeah.
But yeah, I never honestly considered narrating my own, just because I know I'm going to stutter. Yeah. And I see here, what do you want a reader or listener to take away from the story? I see that as like a third part of that question. The moral is, don't forget where you came from. In the blink of an eye, you can lose all of this convenience. Yeah. And so you need to cherish what you have. Don't take it for granted. And keep in mind, nobody really wrote a survival guide that became a bestseller. So if you lose all of your, you know, all your technology tomorrow, what are you going to do? Yeah. Stay humble.
Yeah. Okay.
That's my point. Stay humble. So, what are your personal and professional goals for the book? Like, where would you like to see it going? You know, where would you like to see it in 6 months from
now? I mean, I would like to really just keep the audience building. I think I know you're working on the part 2. I'd like to get in on that.
Oh yeah, that's all yours. That's not even going up for audition. Nobody else is touching
it. Okay. But yeah, I would really just like to, I guess, see her story finish. I'd like to keep going with her. I guess my goals for book 1 are to continue in book 2. I'm invested in her as a person now.
That makes perfect sense. Yeah. And I know people are really anxious to do that. I have my number 1 fan. She is not self-proclaimed either. She is my number 1 fan. I have a fantasy series I'm going to mention briefly called The Mysteria Chronicles. I have 2 books of that series out right now, and last year she fell in love with that series to the point that every one of her siblings, there are 6 of them, and every one of them got both those books in that series. My book sales soared last year because of her. And then I released The Fall, and she is the first person to buy the paperback once I released that. And then her daughter, I believe, was the first person to actually use my bounty link. Maybe I'd have to look. Either way, her daughter was the first one to get the audio version that didn't come from a promo code.
Nice.
Yeah. So, and that's pretty much my goal too. Is I want to see the following continue to grow, and get people excited for the second one, because anyone who has read this book right now or listened with their promo codes, if they think Amber is a badass now, they have not seen anything yet.
All right.
I do have this series as a trilogy, and I do have a month outline.
Okay.
So I know exactly where I'm going all the way to the end, and I hate surprises, so it's so hard to keep my mouth shut on the spoilers, but yeah, that I will go with that. They think Amber's a badass now. They haven't seen anything yet.
All right. That's pretty exciting.
And here's my other little hint. You're fixing to get one amazing character that's about to join Amber.
Oh, all right. I'll have to really make sure I've got a good voice then. I almost messed up Randy, 'Cause you, well, I think it was, oh God, it was when he was first introduced, you just called him like a little 20 something that was basically a squatter. It was some phrase like that. And so in my mind, I was
Exactly.
like, oh, throwaway goofball character. And I started with a really wacky voice. And then I read further and I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to do this totally differently.
Did you just now realize who this was, Clayton? My 15-year-old sitting here going, wait a minute, is that who did your audiobook? I was like, yes.
I sound a little different. I've got an accent
Calm down,
now.
boys. This is recording.
I've got an Ohio accent on.
Well, honestly, I was not disappointed in the accent for Amber at all.
Thanks.
I loved it. Once you got it down, it was amazing. I did stop putting Southern on anything that I put on ACX, though. I have
You probably did
stopped
something really
that.
strong. Yeah.
And I had to stop because literally every audition I got 17 and 1800s, Georgia.
Yeah. Well, and again, like as a performer, it's really hard to find anything else, because a lot of people who have a contemporary accent on like the internet, they try to hide it really hard. And so, being from Central Ohio, I can't. It's hard to find.
It really is. I lived in Indiana for a while, so I was your neighbor there for a little bit. I lived in Muncie.
Mm-hmm.
The accents are original, and I found that in Indiana, those most of the people there would, I like to call them a bunch of transplanted Southerners, because they will use a Southern pronunciation, but have like, well, I like to call it Northern twang to it. It's really strange to hear.
Yeah.
And
I rural Midwest.
I really did not think I had a thick Southern accent unless I got angry or really, really focused on something. But when I moved to Indiana, wow, you're Southern, aren't you? How can you tell? Because I don't hear it. But obviously it is very much there.
Well, it's funny. I have been playing Dungeons and Dragons a little bit, and I learned a little quick Scottish for that game. And now whenever I play board games, I just have to sound Scottish, and my little cartoony Hobbit Scottish just comes out really hard, and I can't stop it.
Oh, wow. Well, I don't know how long we've been on, but I know we do have a 40-minute record limit. But so we don't want anything to get cut off, and I do want to get this posted for everybody. And then I'm going to go live long enough to do my drawing, because I have 7 prizes to give away. They were all able to get people participating to get to that point. I had 11 that could be reached. If we hit 200, there were going to be 11. But got 7 out of the 11. So I'm going to, I guess we'll close this off, and I'll get this posted, and then I'll do the drawing, and we'll go from there. But I'm really excited to see where this is going. I could not have had a better producer to help me do this.
I was looking around a lot of the stuff on the Wild West of ACX, and I think I lucked out getting a good quality book. So it's pretty great.
And that really means a lot to me also. For someone who with an anxiety disorder, to get a compliment, it's huge. It's bigger than it is for people without them, you know. But let me know when your schedule frees up. I'll send you over the next one that I had that I really, really could see you helping it get some attention, because it has literally got 0 attention.
Okay.
Like Amazon sales are 0 for this book.
Wow.
Yeah.
I could get that up to at least 2.
Well, honestly, I didn't really try to push the books at all. After I was writing them, I was busy with life. I have 3 kids, you know, trying to work. I ended up a single mother the majority of that time period. So there was no time to push books. And when my health went down, like I just left a job that I had been offered a promotion at because health-wise I can't hold up physically anymore. So writing has become my job.
There you go.
But I'm okay with that because at least it's a fun job.
Yeah,
It
definitely.
definitely is. But I've had a lot of fun with this. We finally got it to happen.
Yeah.
It took forever, but we got it. And I just look forward to moving on to the next one.
All right.
But definitely stay in the group and stay active on Facebook because I'm fixing to have to go through this whole promo week thing again. Probably here in about 2 weeks with someone else.
All right. We'll keep you updated on that one.
My personal advice is never, ever, ever try to do 3 audiobooks at once. Because
Sounds
I
like
did.
advice. Yeah.
I did. And the other one just went in for review today.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Well, they seem to have been getting them to it quicker because my first 2 books, even though there were no problems, it took like 3 weeks each. So
This
I'm
one
glad
went
they're going
quicker.
faster.
I
Yeah.
know you said this one went quicker for you. And then the one I just got headed to retail today, I was like, wow, what?
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's been fun. I'm going to log off here and go eat dinner that my family ate without me. And not their fault.
Yeah.
But I will definitely be in touch.
Yeah, totally.
All right. Thanks.
Prost.
Absolutely.